could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
An Iowa man and former Christian missionary has been sentenced to spend more than 2 decades in prison for going after minors under the age of 12 who also contracted an STD. Jordan D. Andrew Webb, age 31, hails from the city of Fort Dodge, which is located along the Des Moines River, roughly 100 miles due north of Des Moines itself. In late April, he was found guilty by a Webster County jury on one count each of SA with persons under the age of 12 in the second degree, and also child endangerment. On Friday, District Court Judge Christopher Polking sentenced the one time Baptist evangelist to 25 years in prison for the SA charges, 5 months in prison for other charges, and 2 years in prison for child endangerment charges. Due to each of the charges stemming from the same offense, the judge stated each one of the sentences would be serving concurrently or all at the same time. Polking, the judge, allowed for the possibility of parole after serving at least 70% or 17 and a half years of the sentence and the successful completion of the SO treatment program. Quote, the state is pleased with the outcome of the sentence in this matter. We'd like to thank law enforcement, medical professionals involved, and the Webster County community's help to ensure justice in this matter. Webb was arrested in late April of 2022 by the Webster County Sheriff's Office after health concerns were raised regarding a juvenile earlier that same month, when both Webb and his preschool age victim tested positive for gonorrhea. These concerns prompted the child's emergency removal from the custody of her guardian. An ensuing investigation resulted in a search warrant being executed at the address of 225th Street in Webster County. That address is owned by Harvest Baptist Church and used for its Harvest Baptist Bible College. Webb worked as a missionary to St. Lucia as part of the Christ in the Caribbean project from 2019 through early 2022. Marvin Smith IV, the Harvest Baptist Church current pastor, argued for bond last year by writing that Webb is a great citizen and a great man in the community who would not pose a flight risk. State disputed that characterization by pointing out that the defendant had searched for how to obtain a second passport just weeks earlier. During trial, evidence was presented that Webb was diagnosed with gonorrhea just days before the minor was diagnosed with gonorrhea. The prosecutor's case was aided and substantiated part by the testimony of an expert in child abuse pediatrics. Taylor, the lead prosecutor in the case, successfully pushed back against the defense's claims that the child could have contracted it by other means. Quote, it's possible, but is it reasonable? If this is so possible, why aren't we seeing more of it? And that was stated by the prosecutor asking the jury. Color me surprised when I was able to see who Webb was, the ethnicity, and what it is that he was practicing. And it was obviously more than just a Bible, more than just the scripture, more than just the face of God. So, due to the fact of technical difficulties, I actually have to record all of this all over again. And the only thing that I can pretty much state for people is that this is an ongoing thing in the United States where you have people that have compounds where they are able to wed at very young ages. You have a lot of people that are stuck there. They're not able to tell the tale. You probably won't ever hear the stories because they're trapped. Only so few are able to actually escape. And then the ones that do, some of them don't look back because they're afraid. And then the other ones that do, they turn into a type of vigilantism where they go in and they try to rescue some of the ones that are there. But even when they decide to do that, you have some of the other ones that'll be like, no, we're not letting you go. And these other women, they'll be like, no, we're not letting you go. I'm about to snitch. I'm about to tell that you guys are trying to plan to escape and da da da, all this other type of stuff. Right. And it's amazing to me that these stories continuously take place, and I this is when I happen to tell people that adults don't really care about kids. They don't care about the defense of kids, the well-being, the life, anything of that nature. Because if they did, things like this would not be able to happen. And I'm always hearing of these stories when it deals with the religious folks, when it deals with the churches and everything of the such. And it's always amazing to me that you can, no matter what bad that you can happen to point out, no matter what type of light that you can just so happen to shine, that people will still proudly worship inside directly with the church. It's very amazing to me. The Vatican has a lot of secrets. The Catholic Church has a lot of secrets. Any church that you can pretty much, name that is attached to God has a lot of secrets. But people would rather stay in ignorance versus actually knowing. Because then, if people actually have the information, that now means that they are in some way, shape, or form responsible. Because now that you have the information, you can do something with that information. You can act a multitude of ways, one of which is by informing and telling other people of the same information that you were just able to learn as well, and pointing them in the direction of which you got the information from. But people won't do that. People won't do that. And the other thing that people got to look at is that these missionaries come from the United States and many other European countries, and they tend to go to places like the Bahamas, St. Lucia, the islands. They tend to go to, uh, let's say, China, Thailand, Vietnam, Africa, South America. They will go to all of these places where they feel that the world is not going to care about the people there. So anything that happens is just anything that happens. So if he did this once, he more than likely did this before. And then before that, and before that, and before that, and before that. And again, remember they stated that they had Christ in um, the Caribbean, right? Which means that you had other missionaries that went there too, more than likely doing the exact same thing. Why would I say that? Due by way of the fact that the pastor decided that he wanted to body block for Webb. He wanted to say that he was a great man. He's not a flight risk. He wouldn't harm a hair on a fly. Right? He was body blocking for his boy. Because usually, when you have people that tight, when you got people that close, usually, you might tend to have people in the same things, dibbling and dabbling. So the pastor was defending him because the pastor was also more than likely defending himself. Remember, these are people, these are men of God, the flock. And everything that they do is in the name of and is for the best interest of the Lord. That's what they said throughout all the centuries, right? Whenever anything was taking place, whenever they had to take a hand, whenever they had to take a body, whenever they had to take blood, whenever they had to take you, it was always for the best interest and in the name of God. It was for religion. You had to make the sacrifice to God in order to see the greater good, in order to live a better life, in order to make it through the pearly gates. You had to sacrifice, and that means you had to do whatever it is that you had to do. It would be very interesting to see a lot of these men through history, where it is that they are now. Where are their spirits? Where are their souls? And a lot of those things. I wonder if you would hear them happy and cheerful, or would you hear them screaming in horrible pain and crying because of all of the atrocities that they've allowed and that they've done and contributed to themselves? Again, this is just further proof of the things that I've stated about the church when it deals with religion, when it deals with blind faith, when it deals with ignorance of people just following other human beings, not knowing that those other human beings are leading them down the same road of damnation that they were already on. Again, where are the parents and where's the community to care for these kids, to care for these children? Because I've been talking about this for years and it just seems like the same thing all the time, meaning that nothing ever happens. Nothing ever comes from putting these stories directly out. Nothing but silence and a few comments and maybe like a few views. Hopefully, one day, before it reaches to the point of no return, people will actually stop and stare and they'll think about something for a second and then they'll decide to actually act before it's too late. Because we're already reaching that point of critical mass where you're not going to be able to magically, bring up the water to, cool down the radioactive rods so that you don't have another Fukushima. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to do it. And then you're going to start hearing people with the crying song of woe is me and all this other type of stuff. And again, like I told people before, you got time to sit up there and act, but you refuse to actually do so. And the reason you refuse to do so is because you're waiting for these things or similar things to hit your doorstep. And I keep telling people by the time you keep waiting for that, it's going to be too late to act. There's going to be nothing that you can sit up there and do. The damage is already going to be done, and you're going to have to be there to pick up the pieces, which you're not even going to be responsible enough as an adult to want to actually pick up the pieces of something that of which you allowed. But like I said, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm blowing this, completely out of proportion. Maybe it's something that I'm missing. Maybe I'm the crazy one for actually caring so much and trying to get a message directly out there in hopes that other people will actually care too.